Bickley and Marotta mornings. Arizona sports. The local sports leader. Bickley Blast.
Remember country music star Blake Shelton, the guy who claims he forced Steve Keim to draft Kyler Murray or he would no longer be friends with the former GM? Well, I saw him on television this morning, folks, and guess what? He's still wearing a Cardinals hat, which is good, I guess. It means the bandwagon hasn't completely thinned out. But that said, this Cardinals team has got a different kind of target on its back, and some are surely snickering over Jonathan Gannon's comments on Monday and how he wouldn't declare his Week 1 starting quarterback because it gives him a competitive advantage. Now, maybe that would be true if you have Joe Montana and Steve Young to choose from, but unleashing Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune on an unsuspecting opponent is not anyone's definition of a competitive advantage, and it's that kind of amateurish stance that will make skeptics howl with laughter, as if being the only team that hasn't announced a Week 1 starter is a good thing. I also think the pressure is clearly growing around Gannon because he's been in the NFL a long, long time, and he knows how vicious this sport can be when results actually matter in a league where you get no mercy from anyone, which is fine if you're the architect of the team responsible for regenerating talent, but Gannon isn't rebuilding. He's building. He has to win the undying respect of the locker room regardless of the upcoming results, and that is a brutal ask for a first-time head coach.
Well, I'm not going to name a starter because I think it's a competitive advantage for us going to Washington, but we'll know who the starter is.
Yeah, that was Gannon's statement yesterday, part of his press conference. Preseason now in the rearview mirror, the Colt McCoy era, if you want to call it that. Now in the rearview mirror, he was released yesterday. So you come down to a quarterback situation where you got Clayton Tune, who did some good things in the preseason, did some not-so-great things in the preseason. I guess that's to be expected from a fifth-round pick, getting his first taste of NFL play. And Joshua Dobbs, who probably, and as we speak, might not have even put on a stitch of Cardinals gear yet. But he might be your starting quarterback in Week 1.
Again, because everything that Clayton Tune, all the experience Clayton Tune got at Houston, all the experience Clayton Tune has gotten in the preseason, it will mean nothing compared to what it's going to feel like when football counts. And the speed of the game is at its optimum level. And the violence of the game is at its optimum level. And let's be serious here. The Commanders may not be a good team, but they got guys who can get after the quarterback.
Yes,
Their defensive front is legit, starting with Chase Young. And so I think what you're looking at here is as encouraging as Clayton Tune has been, and my guy who said that this guy is going to be your Week 1 starter before training camp began, before anyone knew what Colt McCoy looked like, he told me that the Vikings organization and players were talking about how good that kid looked in those joint practices. Throwing between the hash marks is something he does that a lot of quarterbacks don't do. A lot of young quarterbacks quickly look for the outside, dink-dunk their way. He'll throw downfield in the interior of the field and do it well. But again, it's just practice. And I don't know if you can trust that going into Week 1, which is why I think a lot of people were holding on to this idea that it's got to be Colt McCoy. Even if he has to throw left-handed, it's got to be Colt McCoy.
Which he did at practice sometimes.
Which he did at practice.
Well, in a way, though, the front office and the coaching staff must have also thought that. Or else, why did they wait so long to make this trade?
That's a great question.
Great point.
Gannon was asked yesterday if you feel comfortable with Dobbs starting?
Yeah.
That was the answer. Then he talked about Josh Dobbs and his journey to get to the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to bring Monty and I aren't going to bring anyone in here that the character doesn't check out first. He's extremely intelligent, character's through the roof. He's actually a guy that we looked at signing in the offseason, so we kind of did a lot of work on him back then. And when it became available, the transaction became available, we decided to make the move.
Yeah, and, the Cardinals have freely admitted, we talked to Josh Dobbs in the offseason. We've liked him for a long time. If that's the case, I mean, you could get critical and say, well, why didn't you just sign him? It wasn't like a break-the-bank kind of deal to get Josh Dobbs. Why didn't you just sign him in the offseason? And then, oh, by the way, you save yourself a fifth-round draft pick in the process.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, a lot of its hindsight is 2020. I'm guessing the Cardinals organization felt okay to good with Colt McCoy as your stopgap guy until Kyler Murray got back.
That's exactly right. I think you're right on the money about that. And I think when it became apparent that, okay, this is not going to work, it forced them into that desperation mode. Again, the Cardinals reached out to the Browns. The Browns it came out of left field to them. So these were not like talks that started a few weeks ago or a month ago. Hey, we might get back to you on this. We're going to see how things go. We might get back to you. There was none of that. This was completely out of left field. And so that kind of that to me reveals that the coaching mindset as it applies to the quarterback position. So, yeah, and again, you'd like to think that the Commanders would go, oh, wow, which one are we going to study for? I don't think Chase Young and Montez Sweat are going to be sweating about that.
I hate to tell you.
Hey.
One guy has 3 preseason games. The other guy has only 2 regular season games. They could study for both and still have the afternoon to. I mean, it's not like they have years and years of games to study
you're
for.
Right.
No,
you're absolutely right.
And they're somewhat similar style quarterbacks too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jonathan Gannon was also asked yesterday after the decision to release Colt McCoy. Hey, was the elbow bothering him?
I mean, he went through all OTAs and training camp, practiced every day, so.
So, in other words, we're not gonna say that he's a flawed quarterback now that we put him on the street. We'll let him determine that. You know what I mean?
Or the other teams determine it through a physical.
Yeah.
But again, he did practice. But again, he practiced without throwing.
I know.
Those
were the red flags.
Does that qualify as practice?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's because at some point in time, if this Cardinal offense had already been installed, if this was year 2 of Drew Petzing, it might be perfectly understandable that a veteran quarterback save his arm. But when you're installing a brand new offense and you don't even have the quarterback making and delivering the throws, okay, that's a red flag.
Yeah, there was reported news anyway today. Cutdown day is today in the NFL. Rosters have to be down to 53 around the league by 1 o'clock Arizona time. That's 4 o'clock Eastern. There was a report from Aaron Wilson, who's got his... Vic, did you hear this performed live?
I did hear this performed live.
Did you?
He was 15 feet away from me.
Did you cry?
I did get a little teared up. I do. Yeah, this song kind of grabs me.
For me,
What is the point? Why are you playing this now?
Well, you didn't finish what you were saying, Vinny.
I was going to finish it.
Oh, okay.
The Andre Bocelli has been released by the Cardinals.
There we go.
Which, if they keep 6 receivers, that could mean Caden Davis, Davion Davis, one of those guys that we talked about yesterday, might be that 6th guy. Or maybe they're going to scour the waiver wire. That version of that song, by the way, is the 2nd best version.
Oh.
Will Ferrell's version in Step Brothers, much better.
Oh, but Will Ferrell still... has a chance to make the team, so I don't want that's the news. We're probably, I'm guessing we'll probably get news of more releases coming through before we get out of here at 10 o'clock today.
Yes. And the Cardinals are expected to be very active in terms of adding guys to the back end of their roster.
Yeah.
So it's that old warning. So remember Jay Feely told us the story about a dude who made the final 53 and went out and bought himself a Hummer, only to be released
2 days later.
And by then, that car's devalued how many percent?
Yeah, you show back up at the dealership and go, see, the thing is this.
You drove it off the lot.
Right, yeah, right. You drove it off the lot. It's yours.
Brutal.
You normally get a few days grace period, don't you?
I wouldn't know.